So now it's my pleasure to reintroduce Jessica Thomas, who is our Director of Patient Education. She's a licensed clinical social worker with expertise in chronic illness and an incredible passion for the work that we do. She's going to talk about resilience in motion, fostering emotional wellness. Jessica?
I hope everyone is having a really good time. This is a lot of information, right? And I'm so glad that everyone is here. So I'm going to talk a little bit about THRIVERSHIP. I'm going to talk a little bit about resilience. And the reason why I do this is because not with physical disease, there's an emotional component to it. If you are somebody living with NET cancer, you probably have had some emotional responses to your disease, correct? And how about if you love somebody with NET cancer? Yeah, it's a big part of your NET journey. So for starters, I'm going to, I'll probably go the wrong direction. I always do the first time. Okay. So for NET THRIVERSHIP, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. And I want you to keep these questions with you at your heart and share them with people that care about you and people that take care of you. So what matters the most to you? This is important as you're thinking about your NET THRIVERSHIP journey, your resilience journey. What brings you joy? These things are incredibly important to maintain, keep, and to be able to hold close to you. And then one of my favorite questions is, what does a good day look like to you? And the reason why I ask that question specifically is because a good day looks different from one person to the next, but it absolutely will share a little bit about yourself and your quality of life and what matters most. So we talk about resilience because we want to really foster the things that we can control. So let's define resilience. If you were to look up resilience in a dictionary, it would say to bounce back. Now, I haven't argued with the dictionary people yet, but what I know and what I believe resilience to be is that you're working through, that resilience is a constant state of working through, that it's not a bounce back. When you have an illness, often we don't get to be where we were before. So how can we apply things that allow us to work through and manage and deal with disease? And resilience changes your experience a little bit. So right here, these were taken from a presentation that I did for patients a couple months ago. And I talked about several factors of resilience, things that can help you thrive. But it's important as a part of your THRIVERSHIP journey to know that your NET cancer is going to be a part of it, the grief and feelings and emotions is going to be a part of it, treatments, treatment changes, symptoms, etc. That's all a part of your journey. But there are things that you can do, things in your control that can really help you. So a couple of these. Having connection. The meet and greet is so intentional. How many of you met someone that you connected with today? Good. That is so much the point. It is so important to connect with other people that understand aspects of what you're going through. Also, learning to manage symptoms. That's a part of your THRIVERSHIP journey. Stress management. We're going to stop and stick there in a little bit because I think stress management is an incredibly important part. You know, stress doesn't cause cancer, but stress doesn't help cancer either. And that's something that we can control. Learning how to manage uncertainty. Living with NETs is hard. Living with cancer is hard, and living with any disease is hard. And so how can you figure out how to manage that uncertainty? And then gratitude, good sleep. How many good sleepers do I have in here? Okay. If you ever want to learn more about sleep hygiene, I'll be sure, and we have some actually NetWise podcasts on it, but being a good sleeper is incredibly important because it allows your body to reset and allows you to be more resilient. So these are just a couple of things. But defining what resilience tools you need. What resources do you need in your NET journey? What areas are lacking? What things would help you feel better emotionally, physically? It's important to know, and what may work for me might not work for you. And so finding the things and putting together the pieces that help you live well is important. And you don't have to do this alone. You can do this with a counselor, you can do this with your doctor, you can do this with a support group kind of bouncing off, but you get to define what resilience tools you need. How many of you have ever had a loss of motivation? I'll raise my hand, like it happens sometimes, right? Okay, well, what I'm talking about here is apathy. So sometimes with disease, people can have something called apathy. And apathy is a general loss of motivation. It happens sometimes in depression as well. And it can be challenging because if you have a lack of motivation, it becomes hard to do the things that we need to do to take care of us and hard to do those resilient things that I was just mentioning. So here are just a few strategies to help. I wanted to address this because this happens and sometimes we don't talk about it a lot. So with apathy, one of the best things you can do is to have a routine. If you have a routine, that helps you to not have to make decisions all the time because your routine kind of guides you through your day, not the toggling of, should I do that or should I not do that? When you have a routine and structure, it can really help you in the sense of dealing with difficulties with moving forward. So here's an image of spiraling up. And it's one of my favorite images because I think we can identify so easily with spiraling down, right? But spiraling up is the same thing. It's just going up. So if we do small things, make small changes, small interventions, we tend to feel a little bit better, and it makes the other thing a little bit easier to do. So for example, the other morning, I started off my day with a walk with my auntie. I'm not from here, so I was visiting my auntie. And we started the day walking, and because I did that, I automatically had more energy, and I automatically felt a little bit better, and I had a little bit more productivity when I got back to my house, or her house. And so it's important to know that you're in control of the little things that you can do, and we don't have to do big, massive steps. We can do small little steps. And that can help us move forward. And it's also important to note that resilience can be beneficial to us, especially when we're paying attention to our neurotransmitters, the chemicals that help us feel good. And one day, I'm going to have a really good conversation with one of our NET specialists here about serotonin and mood and serotonin and NETs, because it's want to learn a little bit more about this. But serotonin could be a beneficial thing for you. We hear about it in the negative context because of carcinoid syndrome for NETs, but it also can be a good thing for us. So there are a lot of neurotransmitters such as dopamine, serotonin, GABA, endorphins, and there are even more. And they all play a role in helping us feel good. And what I like about that is that we can utilize small things that activate those neurotransmitters that help us to feel a little bit better, and then that helps us to spiral up a little bit. For example, watching something funny, incredibly healthy for you. Also, exercise, that helps to activate a lot of the neurotransmitters. Eating well, practicing yoga, mindfulness. There's a lot of different things that you can do that can help you feel better, and that's something within your control. And those things can help to cultivate and really do play a role in resilience, because we're ultimately trying to feel good as we're doing those things. So one neurotransmitter I didn't talk about is oxytocin. And here's your dose. This is Charlie. And Charlie is my brand new dog and puppy. And that the reason why we feel good when we see either animals or babies is because it automatically boosts oxytocin. And you feel good, right? Nobody felt bad seeing this. So just a good example. So managing fatigue. I want to ask how many of you deal with fatigue? Okay, so it's a common thing in a NET journey. And how many of you are frustrated when it happens? Okay, it's a very common thing. So fatigue is a real thing that, that many of us experience. So some tips on managing fatigue is understanding your fatigue. You are the expert on your body and how you respond and react. Avoiding contributors to fatigue. Last night I went to a dinner, it was kind of late, and I get fatigued myself, and that's a contributor, right? So I had to kind of watch that. Take a rest when you need it. If you ever get frustrated, feel guilty that you're feeling fatigued, know that your rest is reset. And when you're resetting, you feel so much better. That you're actually giving yourself a sense of power by resting than being weak or wrong. It's a positive thing to do. Prioritize your tasks, healthy eating, engaging in exercise, and then finding help and taking help sometimes when it's offered. Many times we like to do everything, and that can wear us down. So finding that balance. And then managing stress. This is something that's challenging because stress is going to be with us and around us all the time. And so what things can we do to help to manage stress? Well, one, I wish we could all avoid it all the time. Sometimes there is avoidable stress. Like, for example, or avoiding unnecessary stress. Like, for example, if I am on time or early, then I don't have to worry about being late. Sometimes we can alter the situation. We get on the road. I know that there's a lot of traffic here, guys. Again, I'm not from here. A lot of traffic. And so you might get on the road and then realize, you know what, I need to change the route that I'm going because the way that I intended to go is no good. So you can alter it. You can adapt to it. Find ways to make subtle changes to adapt. And then also accepting the things that you cannot change. But managing stress is so key. And if you struggle with a lot of stress, I am going to encourage you to see a counselor, a therapist, someone to help you. It's not a bad thing. It will make you a lot more resilient to know those techniques. So then we'll talk about coping mechanisms. I think we all have coping mechanisms in our back pocket, and they're very individual depending on who we are and what we like to do. There's enduring and temporary coping mechanisms and reactive and proactive. So the enduring are the things that we do, the healthy habits. I'll call out Thor. He rides his bike a lot. That's I can tell, a very enduring coping mechanism. It lasts you a long time and carries you a long way with coping. And it's a proactive thing to do. A temporary coping mechanism might be going to get a cup of coffee with a friend and talking and venting. Or it may be participating in art, doing something like painting or listening to a song. You have control over proactive and reactive, and both of them are good. It's just important to know that, that you should have good coping mechanisms ready to go and not always lean on them to be reactive. So trying to think about using them in more of a proactive fashion. So the next steps. How do you build your own recipe for THRIVERSHIP? What do you need? And if you can identify something, what is one small thing that you can do that can bring you closer to achieving that? Small changes make big differences. Big changes are often really hard to do. So what's one small thing? What tools do you need? What resources are there to support you? And can you give yourself permission? So if you can't, I'm giving you permission. I once heard Brene Brown say, if you write down and give yourself permission for something, that there is a better likelihood that you'll do it. When I was practicing therapy full time, I would give people permission slips often because if we could be intentional about giving ourselves permission, we often would accomplish the things that we wanted to do, or we would give ourselves a break. The other thing I'm going to highlight here is that a NETRF has a lot of resources. My voice might be a little bit familiar from our NetWise podcast if you listen to it. But we have a lot of great things, and I know by even just being here that you're on our mailing list now, but know that we have our Know Your Nets conference coming up in July. If you have a net story that you want to share, please feel free to connect with me. I always want to give space and give people the opportunity to share their story in the right platform, in the right setting. But your story matters, and you're not alone, and when you share your story, it connects with other people. We also have our Net Patient Guide. Highly recommend that you have one. It's purse-sized, per my opinion, but it's pretty small. It's easy to bring around, and it's good to share with someone who cares about you, and sometimes for doctors that care for you. And with that said, I am going to now transfer over to our Net Impact Program Tumor Board.